The Auburn Tigers will be active in the transfer portal in several key positions.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We're dapping it up with the Darrell Dapprich, Montgomery radio legend, on this fine Friday. We'll talk about Auburn basketball as they head to Maui for the Maui Invitational, what could be an electric week for Auburn basketball next week. What does Auburn need to do to beat Texas A&M? And I got a feeling that has grown over the course of the week. Darrell, I want to get your thoughts on that. But as the transfer portal window gets closer and closer, I believe it opens on the 9th, Darrell, you start looking and kind of hearing things and speculating and seeing just kind of the current state of this roster and projecting what the roster could be a year from now or even a few months from now. They're going to have to be active. The Auburn Tigers are going to have to get a lot of key players at a lot of different positions, Darrell.
Yeah, and it's always a combination. It's graduation. It's, reading the writing on the wall of particular position groups, guys maybe being disgruntled because they haven't gotten the playing time. You look at maybe a lack of what you're going to bring in from a recruiting class as far as a position group. So all those factors make it very obvious as to what I think position groups Auburn will go heavy in the portal. These also have been kind of confirmed by some people that we know that are close to the staff and that kind of thing without getting specific, just generic position groups. And I think some make a lot of sense and some are just there for depth in a particular position room.
Yeah. And I mean, some of it might be, a situation where, hey, we're going to add you for depth, but you're going to have the opportunity to win some playing time. But the biggest one, it appears that Auburn is gearing up to pursue a quarterback in the portal, which isn't breaking news or anything like that. I think most people kind of get the feel of that's where we're headed as an offense. And to me, I know there's folks that are going to be upset about that. Oh, play Walker, or oh, play Hank, or oh, play Deuce Knight. I don't think any of those guys have the situation from the perspective of the coaching staff to be the guy next year, or they're going to give them a chance to compete with whoever that they bring in. But to me, this is going to be the storyline. And every time a quarterback enters the portal, we saw this a few years ago before it ended up being Payton Thorne. Every time a quarterback enters the portal, Auburn fans, their hearts might skip a beat and say, is this the guy? Is this going to be Auburn's next passer? And there's a chance that it could be.
I think a couple different factors from a couple years ago that'll be different. Number one, I think Auburn will have its guy before spring practice, where unlike with Thorne a couple years ago, they went late. Second of all, your first point about the three guys in the quarterback room are coming back next year. The great thing about that, other than Hank Brown, in my opinion, I don't think that Deuce Knight or Walker White have a problem, particularly sitting another year and getting their game to the point that it needs to be Auburn's quarterback of the future. And I fully expect the portal guy not being a guy that you go out and get that's going to play 2 years. I think it's a 1-year guy, a one-hit wonder, a 1-year solution. And then in 26, you open it up to Deuce and Walker, and if Hank Brown's, to those three guys to compete for the job. I think all three will be a lot better suited to be a starting quarterback in the SEC. And that's the great part of it. I don't think that there's anybody coming. Like when Auburn was recruiting Juju Lewis, in my opinion, and I think other people's opinion now that he's committed to Colorado, everybody is saying he was the most ready to start from day one and of all the kids.
Yeah.
So I think a guy like him probably would have expected to come on campus and start next year, or at least
agree with that.
So taking the guy with the higher ceiling in Deuce Knight and knowing that he can come in and learn, and then Walker, who's a great kid, looks like he's willing to just kind of grow and mature, works out perfectly, I think, for Auburn, and why I think it's a 1-year rental is the way you look at it.
Yeah, then it gives you a chance for the guys to fight for, okay, who's the next multi-year starter at Auburn the year following that. I have no issue with that. But also, if you're Auburn and there's a guy that is ready to move on from his current school and he does enter the portal, like you can't not pursue a guy because he has 2 or 3 years left of eligibility. And so, like, I think what you're saying is true in a perfect world. But if Auburn can find a guy that's got 2 or 3 years left of eligibility that gives them a chance to win right away, a better chance to win right away, I still think they need to pursue them if that's the case. And then you've got to figure out, how the chips fall after that.
Good point. If you go get a guy that's, let's say, a sophomore, but has potential, had a really good year as a freshman or as a sophomore, has already, whatever you get, you better get somebody that's experienced, and you're not basing it on forecasting. You've got to get a guy in here next year that's already shown they could produce. Okay. So whether that's a freshman, sophomore, an alien from Mars, I don't care. I get your point that if you got a guy that's a sophomore or junior that's elite, this cat better be elite, but is going to play 2 more years. Yes, you do take him, but he better be really, really good. Then what happens, Zach, though, is the dominoes start to fall. Then you, instead of losing one guy out of the quarterback room, you may lose 2. So then you may take 2 guys in the portal, a guy that can be there as depth. And so there's a lot of factors with that. But you're right. That's a good point. I just think up until maybe a couple days ago, I got the feeling that Auburn would be looking at somebody that could be a 1-year guy, bridge that transition. But if you get an elite guy, a really, really elite guy that's already played as a freshman or sophomore and has a couple years, you cannot pass on that.
Yeah, and then you look at the running back situation. Like I think they're going to have to add a running back just to the nature of how old some of these guys are, and we'll see what happens with the current state of the roster. I think they're going to have to add receivers. I think they're going to have to add tight ends, and I think they're going to want to add a tackle. Like every position group on the offense, they're going to need to get a guy. They're going to need to get a guy that's ready to compete and play right away. And that's a little scary. I mean, that's a lot of emphasis on this upcoming portal window.
Well, you've got some core guys coming back on the offensive side of the ball that are really, really good. So you want to surround them with high-level performers. Let's just take the running back room, for example. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, only Hunter is the one that leaves, and Alvin Henderson is coming in. Well, you only, recruited 1 running back? You don't want to go into an SEC season with just 3 running backs. So you either get another guy in this recruiting class, like an Usman Kroma, you don't give up on him. Sure. You bring him in, or you go get 2 portal guys. Now, if somebody like Austin or Cobb that's coming back wants to be running back 1 or was upset with the amount of carries, I'm not saying there are, but you just never know with this day and age in college football. If one of those dudes leave, then you better go get 2. It's all about knowing who's staying and who's leaving. But it wouldn't shock me if Auburn got a running back in the portal and added another running back to this recruiting class so that the running back room gets to 4 if somebody else was to leave besides Jarquez.
Yeah. Then wide receiver, Robert Lewis and KLS will be gone. Assuming you hold on to everybody, I still think you need to add folks just because there's not going to be that older guy in the room. What happens with Cam Brown? What happens with Sam Jackson? I mean, it's just
what happens with Caleb Burton.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
So let's say you lose 3, you lose 2 to graduation and 3 to the portal. That's 5 dudes.
That's a lot.
You've got to go out and I know you've got what? I think Auburn's got 1 receiver, 2 receivers coming in. Turner. Is it just Turner that is coming in this class?
And then Derek Smith, who's
that's right, 2. So you probably
a receiver. Yeah.
So you better go get 3. You better get 2 or 3 in the portal. I mean, it's just that simple. And then offensive tackle, it's very obvious that you need to go get maybe a left tackle. And depending on what Wade does, if he leaves, is Jeremiah Wright staying? There's a lot of what ifs, and I'm talking about from a graduation or trying to go to the NFL standpoint,
right? And then tight end is fascinating to me. I mean, you lose Luke Deal, you lose Brandon Frazier, you lose Rivaldo Fairweather. It's been very, widely discussed on the show. Like, why is Mike O'Reilly not playing more? Is he happy? What happens with that? Like, you may get a totally new tight end room next year.
You got 2 coming in the recruiting class, but you better get somebody that can play right away and make an immediate impact, and that's going to be a portal guy.
Yeah,
a guy like Rivaldo Fairweather.
Yeah, Hollis Davidson and Ryan G.
Yeah.
So, are the guys coming in. So, yeah, the offense is going to look totally different next year. And that may not be a bad thing. But it's going to be a wild month of December for sure. There's been something that is growing over the course of the week when I think about this Auburn and Texas A&M game. I don't like it, Darrell. I don't like it, and I want to get your thoughts on it in just a moment. Right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to play daily fantasy football. What is Prize Picks? Well, Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your money. You can run your game all season long with Prize Picks. You can sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday each Tuesday. So check it out over at Prize Picks. Download the app today. Just search Prize Picks in your phone's app store and use code LOCKEDONCollege. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the app. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Darrell, I don't like what I'm about to say. I don't like what I'm about to say, but the more I think about this Auburn and Texas A&M matchup, a lot of the Auburn fan base feels really good about this game, and I love it. The more I think about it, the less I like it. The less I look at, potential matchups that I think go in Auburn's favor. The more I think about it, the more I think, okay, yeah, A&M's defense is a problem. Auburn's offense has looked bad against average to below average SEC defenses. I don't trust that they're going to let Jarquez Hunter take over a football game, even if he's rolling. The more I think about it, the more I don't like this matchup for Auburn. And I can't tell if it's just me self-sabotaging myself or if it's if that actually makes sense.
I'm going the other direction.
Let's go. I was hoping you would say that.
Man, the further we get into this week, and I must be an idiot, but I told myself I wouldn't do this. But the further we get into this week, the better and better I'm feeling about this game. All right, I'm going to tell you.
Talk me off the ledge.
Yeah, I'm not going to. It's not just about fuzzy feelings. Darrell's got some data to back this up.
Come on.
Number one, when I got through being a guest on the Texas Ag Show, and I've had some conversations with their host, they are extremely worried about this game, very scared about this game. And anytime you get people from that camp saying, and they should, they respect their opponent. I'm not criticizing them for that. They just know the nature of the SEC, and they're like, this game scares me. It concerns me. I think the Texas factor is real. I won't get away from that. I think it's real. I think there is a definite little bit of a looking past. And then,
hey, did you hear? We had Andrew Stefaniak, host of Locked On Aggies, on the show yesterday. Did you hear him do the same thing Elko did?
And he's my boy.
Called Auburn, Texas.
Yeah, I love Andrew. Good dude. Yeah, I paid him $100 to do that. No, he's a good dude.
Sure.
The third thing is, when you look at matchups, Texas A&M's strength on offense is Auburn's strength on defense. And I think they cancel each other out. And the way DeMarcus Riddick in this secondary is playing, I like the fact that Marcel Reed has got to beat Auburn. Now, A&M's fans can say, we're going to take Hunter out of the game. And I love the fact that a Payton Thorne's going to have to beat us. Look, I get it. Payton Thorne's been dumped on. He's been criticized. But remember, last year, he played 2 of his better games against Georgia and Alabama at home in Jordan-Hare. He is capable of doing it. And I just think that the more I think about it, I think Auburn's defense is going to take away what A&M loves to do the most, what they're best at. And then I think Marcel Reed having to beat Auburn with Riddick being that guy that can help contain a dual threat quarterback. Hugh Freeze said it himself. We've been a different defense since he's played a lot of snaps. I like the fact that I'm not nervous anymore. and I know it's one game and a small sample size, but I just feel better about special teams. I feel better about Malcolm Simmons back there returning punts. I feel better about Vashon kicking field goals. I like our special teams better than I did 4 weeks ago.
I'll give you that. I'll give you the special teams for sure.
Well, don't you think that Auburn's defense, though, is much better now than they were 4 games ago, getting off the field on third down, extending drives?
Yes. I don't think my lack of confidence is because of Auburn's defense.
Okay. Well, Auburn would have 2 more wins right now if they could have done that against Oklahoma and Missouri. I'm not putting it all on the defense.
While that's true,
yeah,
totally irrelevant for Saturday. But I do agree with you. Like, that is true.
Except that it's got the feeling of being a similar game to the Missouri and Oklahoma games, where it's going to be a slugfest and a close game late.
Does Auburn score 20 points on Saturday?
Yes.
Okay. If you give me Auburn scores 20, I probably take that. I don't see the path that real quick, because I know somebody's going to call us out on this. I've said this before too. I got called out on it. And about Payton Thorne having a good Iron Bowl last year, I've said that too. He was 5 of 16 for 91 yards. He threw 2 picks.
Yeah. So you can't have it both ways. When Payton Thorne has a good statistical game and Auburn loses the game, people will say the important thing is you win the game. He put Auburn in a position with his running. You left out the running stats there. I thought he had some good runs.
He had 15 carries for 57 yards.
And I thought, and that includes sack yardage being taken away. So he had a lot more than that when you take away the sack yardage. Just having a good game doesn't mean you just throw it well. Yeah, he had some issues throwing the football, but he did a good job with drives. He did a good job running the football. I get it. Statistically, it didn't look good, but he played a better game in that game with putting them in a position to win with his toughness and his running the football. That's what I mean.
I think for Auburn to win Saturday, they need a non-offensive touchdown.
I could go with that. I could go with a Malcolm Simmons punt return or a pick.
Can you imagine the hype around Malcolm Simmons if he scored a special teams touchdown?
I could go for a pick 6 or a strip sack fumble or a special teams touchdown. Yes.
Yeah, I think a pick 6 is more likely, but I don't love A&M's passing game. But to me, it's not about Auburn's defense in this. To me, it's about, and I said this on the crossover yesterday, this whole game is determined by when Auburn has the football versus the A&M defense. If Auburn can hold their own and look competent, Auburn wins this football game. I'm just not betting that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I think that if Auburn allows A&M to run the ball for 170, 180 yards, I think it'll be. I don't think Auburn has a chance to win. But again, I'm going to get back to that Payton Thorne analogy because you're right. People are going to. Payton Thorne played a complete game. He was not elite throwing the football, but he played well. But the way he ran the football that Saturday against Alabama, and I think something similar is coming Saturday.
What did he do against Georgia last year?
Well, he had that really nice 65-yard run.
His rushing yard, he had 12. He had 92 rushing yards. One of them was 61 yards, and then his passing 10 of 19 for 82 yards. It's just crazy how bad our passing game was last year. It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
And a lot of that last year was the receiving room, the passing yards against Alabama.
In that game, especially.
Yeah, I remember all the drops and all. I mean, so
that was a rough game to watch.
I mean, both of those games, he kind of like said, okay, I've got to do whatever I can do to help this team win. And if that means getting killed by running the ball, he did it.
And then the third biggest home game last year, Ole Miss, 9 of 13 for 100 yards. Just goodness gracious. He only had 34 rushing yards.
I mean, you throw it 13 times, I guess you are going to only have 100 yards.
I guess, man. It's just the overall output was just insane last year.
Okay.
It was crazy.
Great. And how much better is it this year? It's better.
It is better, but it's not paying off into anything. Exactly. I think that's what stinks about the whole
because
thing.
There's been other variables than just Payton Thorne.
Yeah.
If it was all about Payton Thorne, Auburn would have more wins by the improvement that he's played. It's been penalties,
I agree with that.
Red zone inefficiencies, all that. So, look,
I agree with that.
I think Auburn can get to 23 points Saturday. I really do.
Does that win the game for them if they score 23 points?
Yes. I picked them to lose early in the week on another show, and I'm leaning towards changing that on this show.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Since we'll talk basketball at the end. So I think yesterday I said 24-17. That was recorded a few days ago. Now I'm leaning almost towards like 27-17 in favor of A&M.
Okay. I'm going 23-20 Auburn.
Wow, that'd be incredible. I mean, a 23-20, you said 23-20? Is that what you said? A 23-20 victory. I mean, it locks you into a fifth win, but I just think it does so much more than that. I think it just kind of keeps a lot of things held together. That'd be incredible. I hope you're right. Gosh, I hope you're right.
I changed my stance on that because, again, I picked Auburn to lose 27-20 earlier in the week, and I've just some things in the last 2 days have made me
feel good about. Yeah. I get it. I'm glad you were here to talk me off the ledge to some extent.
I may be completely wrong, but that's just how I feel.
But one of us is going to be right. How great is that? Normally, we're just both wrong.
We are. It's right.
Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Auburn basketball heads to Maui, and it's going to be electric. And the Auburn Tigers can win the entire thing, and we'll tell you how next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Z-Biotics. Darrell, can you imagine not taking Z-Biotics before a night of responsible drinking?
So I've got a pretty good feeling that, or just a really gut feeling that Friday night and Saturday morning, a lot of Z-Biotics will be taken by Auburn fans.
I hope so. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle the rough morning after drinking. So when you drink alcohol, it gets converted into this toxic byproduct in the gut, and it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for that rough hangover the next day. So how do you take pre-alcohol? You drink it for the best results. You drink it for your first beverage of the evening, and then you drink responsibly, and then you enjoy the next day. It's that easy. Go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll take care of you. zbiotics.com/college and use code college or use code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off your order. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. So Darrell, you're saying it's right at the line. If you're saying 23-20 and it's a 2.5 point line, you're right at it. You were right at the line.
Vegas and these sports books know something.
Yeah, they do. Auburn is plus 310 to win the Maui. You like that?
I think
they're the second best odds. I think UConn's only higher.
I think second best odds is yes, it's exactly what I think that's right on.
Yep. Hey, right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Once again, $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet hits at FanDuel.com. Final few moments of today's edition of Locked on Auburn. Later today, we have another squad show dropping. It's me with 5 other hosts, whatever we have coverage of the Maui Invitational. It's 6 of us breaking it down, and it's a really, really fun show. So that'll drop this afternoon for the second show of the day on YouTube or on your favorite podcast feed. I think Auburn can win this thing. If Auburn continues to play at the level that they have been so far, Janai Broom keeps playing like the best player in college basketball, Chaney Johnson, smooth as can be, and Chad Baker-Mazara continues to score around 10 points, you just need one of these other wing players, whether it's a Tahad Pettiford, whether it's a Denver Jones, whether it's a Miles Kelly. Denver hasn't had he hasn't had a game where he pops off yet this year. JP Pegues, we've heard that Bruce has challenged JP Pegues to be a little bit more aggressive on the offensive side of the floor. If one of those guys pops off, Auburn will win this thing.
I picked Miles Kelly to do that on our last post-game live podcast because I feel like there is going to be some coaching that's going to take Broom out of some games. And I don't mean he's not going to score, but I'm talking about below his average. I think obviously elite coaching can find a way to limit a player. Yeah. And so I think Broom is going to have a hard time when I say a hard time, it's going to be more difficult for him to get to what he's been averaging up to this point. I still think he'll get his. So somebody else is going to have to emerge. Somebody else is going to have to compensate for those points. And I said it a couple nights ago, Miles Kelly, and the comfortable confines of that Maui gym, which is so shooter friendly.
Yeah.
Very shooter friendly. I see him and Pettiford going off. And especially Kelly, I just feel like he is going to continue his hot shooting. It's a gym that's made for outside shooting. So I predict and project he'll be the one that steps up.
Yeah, I'm going to call for a Denver Jones game. I think if Auburn beats Iowa State, it's because somebody else pops off, and I'm going to predict Denver Jones. I think we see a season high in points for Denver. So we'll see. We'll see if that happens. But North Carolina doesn't seem to be too confident going into this, and you can hear more about this in the squad show that drops later today, but they're concerned about Dayton, and then I think they're concerned about Auburn as well. So, I mean, that's kind of a crazy thing to say that North Carolina basketball is concerned about Auburn, but that's where we're at right now.
I learned my lesson about that. I was in Columbus, Ohio in 2019 during the Final Four run, and I watched North Carolina play.
Yeah.
And I was sitting around North Carolina fans, and when it was evident that Auburn was going to get to the Sweet 16, I heard a couple of them say, well, we can go ahead and punch our ticket to the Elite Eight.
Ooh.
And I thought, I wish I could have seen him again. But, yeah, North Carolina being a blue blood and that heritage, they just assume. But if they're a little bit concerned, that says a lot. That speaks volumes to me. Maybe they learned their lesson.
Yeah, the overall respect that Auburn is getting from all of college basketball right now, it's a little different, right? When they had the number one team for a few weeks there, like during the Jabari and Walker year, there was still a lot of criticism. It's like, well, Gonzaga's better. They haven't played anybody. Auburn's untested. And then Auburn would lose a game. Like, told you. And there are all these pollsters that, wouldn't rank them very high for stupid reasons. But you're not really seeing that this time. Like there's this there's this consensus among the national college basketball media that this Auburn team is special, that this Auburn team is really, really good. Just in our time covering this, I don't think the national discussion about Auburn basketball has been this aligned. There's always been some controversy or disagreement with it. And I don't know if that's just if that should scare folks or worry us or if we should have an opinion on it one way or the other.
Embrace it. Embrace it. Wash yourself in it. Here's why the national media talks about this team differently than they did a few years ago. That team was so front court dominated and had suspect guard play that a lot of those guys were right, that if Kessler or Jabari Smith had an off night or had a off day in the tournament and someone found a way to shut them down, that Auburn did not have. Remember the guys that said Auburn doesn't have the guards that you need to have in the NCAA tournament? It's a guard-driven tournament. Yeah. And Wendell and those guys did not. I love Zep.
That's true.
They did not. This year's team, if for whatever reason Broom is struggling or the front court is struggling, the back court with Denver and Miles and Pettiford and to a certain extent Chad Baker-Mazara can pick up the slack and win you games in tournaments. Yep. And that's why they're speaking about Auburn basketball differently.
Yep. I love it. And I think this team's going to live up to the expectations for sure. So, Darrell, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Follow me on X, DAP6410, Darrell Dapp on Instagram, Wednesdays, Fridays with you, Sunday mornings, the football reaction show, and then after every basketball game, we go live.
Yep. Be sure to like the video and please subscribe. And once again, just quick programming note, and some of this is what Darrell just said, but later today, there's a college basketball squad show. It previews the Maui Invitational. So we got Locked On Buffs, we got Locked On Spartans, we got Locked On UConn, Tar Heels, and our new Iowa State hosts were all there. And it's a really, really cool look at the tournament. So you're ready to go for Monday. But also, I'm going to try to go live after the Auburn football game. I'm out of town, and so I may not be able to, but we'll see. But Darrell and I will definitely have a show Sunday morning for sure. So, and we'll have a ton of basketball shows early next week for the Maui Invitational. So please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.